Hey everyone.
Hey,
Hey,
how you doing?
good. Good to
Yeah,
see ya.
you too.
All right, let's do this.
Cool,
And
I'm excited.
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Let's do this. Wow. Um, yeah, before we do it, before we get into the podcast, talk about your podcast, let's check in quickly.
sure.
Um, yeah. Um, I guess I'll start. Um, I do feel a bit nervous, but it's excited energy.
Yeah,
Just want to get that out. But yeah, I'm pretty pumped.
yeah.
Yeah,
Me too. Is this your first Instagram live?
it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah. This is
Yeah,
I did my first one last week with Nuke, and so that warmed me up a little bit. But I'm feeling
nice.
good, and yeah, I don't know, just feeling good today. So I'm excited to be here and excited to see you, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, let's get right to it here. So we're gonna just talk about your podcast that you recently started. How long has it been that you started your podcast?
Yeah, so it would have been the end of March was when I
Wow,
posted the first couple of episodes. Yeah, so
that's amazing.
yeah, just over 3 months, I guess that'd be.
Yeah. So the podcast for the audience listening is called The Journey of Jared.
The Journey with Jared.
The Journey with Jared. That's right.
Yeah, yeah,
And so what inspired you to start this podcast?
yeah, for sure. So I guess it started probably about a year ago, and I started it as kind of a joke, but I started calling it kind of a joke, but it's turned into the reality that I was going through a quarter life crisis
Mm,
and just started questioning a ton of basically everything I was doing professionally, personally. Started doing a lot of work with myself and realized that being out in the spotlight was one of the things that I wanted the most, but also scared me the most at the same
right.
time. And so I really was kind of looking for a medium for trying new things and to push me out of my comfort zone. And I went, well, if this scares me that much, then I am going to force myself to do it. And I thought I could talk to people okay. And so decided to do a podcast, and the rest was kind of history, and ended up actually really enjoying it. And it's been really good and learned a ton. And yeah, it's been good so far.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So I'm curious as to when you started the process of creating the podcast. Did you run into any forms of like any obstacles that came your way? Any fear or doubts that showed up? Or
Yeah.
yeah,
I would say, first of all, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And so the first couple episodes were a lot of technical difficulties. I had no idea about anything.
hmm
Like, watched a couple of YouTube videos the night before and then tried to set up a little setup as best I could. And first time took an hour. And luckily, I had one of my friends, Steve, there who was on the first episode.
yeah,
And we went through it and ended up recording it. And I think so. The biggest thing was I actually started recording episodes in January, and it scared the living shit out of me to post them. And so I saved up a couple over the couple of months, and then, as you know, because we're in a men's group together, my quarter one goal was to post. I think it was like 3 episodes, and if I was going to fail it, and it was the night before, I was finally like, okay, like I have to do this now, and that was what mustered the courage. And
hmm
even though I didn't announce it anywhere, even though like I didn't tell too many people I was doing it, um, it still scared the crap out of me to post them. And I think it took me 45 minutes of having them ready and just waiting to click
yeah,
the upload button. And couldn't do it halfway a couple times, but it was just almost really liberating to do it and to put
hmm
myself out there. And it was almost like a weight off my shoulder. And it's just been easier and easier every time, which has been really cool. And the
yeah.
response has been really good, which I was, pleasantly surprised with. Of some people had listened and had given me some good feedback, and so
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how we get in our own way, when it comes to doing something that's outside of our comfort zone, right? There's always that resistance that shows up, and it's this sort of fight or flight, mode that triggers in us, right? And it's always that last resistance, right? That
Yeah,
we have to overcome.
for
And
sure.
you mentioned as well too, like we're both in the men's circle, men's group
Yeah,
as well too. Um, if you can speak on that as to um, how that helped you, how that supported you with this project.
for sure. And it started in that process of when I was going through that quarter life crisis. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the big things was like, I just need to try new things. And so
Mm-hmm.
pushing myself to try new things, really getting into more mental health. Um, and self discovery, and that's actually where I discovered the King of Hearts, which you're heavily involved with. And I
Yeah.
went to Heart and showed up by myself, didn't know anybody, didn't know what to expect. My plan was kind of just to sit in the corner, not say anything, and just had some really cool conversations that I'd never had with strangers, and not only strangers but a lot of people that were really close to me, of
Mm-hmm.
open honest conversations. And that kind of started the ball rolling. And some of the other guys, Andy specifically, after a
Mm-hmm.
couple of meetings, he said, "Oh, there's also this men's group that I do," and talked to me a little bit more about it, where it was going a lot more deeper with a
Yeah.
specific set of guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and again, just kind of as I wanted to scratch that itch of opening myself up, personal development, mental health,
Mm-hmm.
and going through that. And so I decided to join, and it's been amazing. And it's really changed a lot of my perspectives on a lot of different things, and a really cool environment where it's almost, uh, you know, helping each other out, like co-mentoring almost,
Yeah.
of all of the guys, take energy and give energy. And sometimes depending on the day, sometimes they switch in the middle of, a single meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and just getting really close with these guys. And I always explain it to people almost like getting to people, or sorry, getting.
Oh. Hmm. Uh-oh. Yeah. Yeah. I lost you there for a few seconds.
No worries. I turned off my Wi-Fi, so it should. I'm just using data now, so it should be okay. Um, but anyways, I was just saying, getting to know people backwards, almost,
Yeah.
of
Fully.
like,
Yeah.
I've only known these guys for maybe 2 months at this point, and yet we've gone into our, deepest insecurities, or the things that we struggle with the most in our family life, and a lot of personal things. And then you think about it and you're like, I don't even know what this guy does for work. You don't know that surface level stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really interesting dynamic for me, and really cool of, um, just getting deep with people right off the bat, instead of keeping things superficial.
Yeah.
Sometimes for an entire, relationship, no matter what it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think the other one too, the biggest thing that I've noticed and really come to appreciate is,
Mm-hmm.
all of the guys there care about you and have your best interests at heart, but they'll also
Yeah.
challenge you, right? They'll challenge you on what you're saying.
Yeah.
They'll point out blind spots. They'll pull you out of your shell, as opposed to just
Mm-hmm.
yesing you, right? It's not always just,
Yeah.
oh, it'll be okay, right? Sometimes it's like, no, you're wrong in this situation. Like you need to switch it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've really grown to
Yeah.
really appreciate that, and really love all the guys there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can definitely attest to all of that as well. Like, it's really that accountability piece, or like even like a gentle rising, right? Of
Yeah.
gentle reminders, and through watching other people grow, and from all their experiences, it's like this osmosis experience, right? So
Yeah.
by like there's times when you share something that I'm like, whoa, like, I was thinking that, and then you just you relate to it and you learn from that experience, and it's
Yeah,
just, yeah, it's an amazing experience, and it really is a classic example of your environment, right?
for
Who
sure.
you surround yourself with, and if you're growing, and then that inspires me to grow, and we all grow together. So it really is a big testament to that. So that's
For
awesome.
sure. And I'm glad that you said that too, of, just how important it is surrounding yourself with people
Hmm.
that are pushing themselves, right?
Yeah.
That are pushing themselves to be better, that are growing. And like you were saying, of like, almost, I don't want to get left behind, right?
Exactly.
As well as, you see some of the strides that one person has done and you're
Hmm.
like, well, I want to do that, or I've seen their progress, I want to keep progressing. And it's a really cool environment and a really cool
Hmm.
relationship. So
Exactly. Yeah. So going into the podcast, so like in your conversations, like um, I've listened to almost all your podcasts. I think there's one or two that I haven't listened to fully
cool.
yet. But you go
Yeah.
really, like, I love the way the conversations that you have, with Andy and Nuke and the guests that you have, how you steer the conversations, and and how you focus, and you get really deep in certain in the conversations, and being vulnerable. Um, and there was one episode where you talked about how does it go? Like, it's being selfish to be selfless,
Yeah.
right? I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, like that, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Like, like that. That's whew, like, can you speak on that?
For sure. Yeah. And
Yeah.
first of all, I just wanted to say thanks so much for following it and listening to it. And you've been really instrumental in keeping me going and giving me that positive reinforcement. So thank you.
Of
Um,
course. Yeah.
but yeah, so the one of the things that I've really been going on recently is, the idea of being selfish to be selfless.
Hmm.
And it's an idea that I first heard when I was listening to Gary Vee's podcast, which I listen to a ton, as a lot of the guys know. But the idea of not demonizing doing something for selfish reasons, if it's actually bringing value to other people,
Right.
right? And so for me, when looking at myself and bringing it into my life, I went, I'd always been sort of the emotional rock to my family and to a lot of my friends, and situations like that. And when I looked at it, I was always just giving. And I thought to myself, well, if I do a bunch of work on myself and I fill my cup, I make myself better, purely for selfishly to make myself better, it will then allow me to actually help other people more,
Yeah.
right? If I work on my happiness and bringing my self-esteem up, bringing my happiness up, it'll actually give me, more to share with them. I'll be able
Yeah.
to better support them. I'll be able to support more people. I'll be able to, help them in ways that I wasn't able to before,
Hmm.
because I was hurting inside and I was broken inside.
Right.
And so, working on that sort of thing. And then that, of course, being the selfless part. And so really, really doing that and internalizing the idea that it's okay to do something that benefits yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd always been the kind of person where it was only for other people. Other people were always first.
Hmm.
I was last. It was no matter who it was, they were before me. Their wants, their needs, their desires were before mine. And
Hmm.
so flipping that and saying, okay, well, I'm going to put myself first for the first time in my life, has led to a lot of growth and has led me to being able to help others better too. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's true. It's like I think of the analogy, like in a plane, for example, right? When the oxygen mask falls off, right? Like, you put your mask on first before
yeah,
you help others, right?
yeah,
So yeah, that completely makes sense in terms of that self-care, making sure that your cup is filled and given from there, right? So love
yeah.
that. I love that. And I also, I think it was Andy that said this actually in one of the episodes about unlearning to learn, basically, right?
Yes.
Which goes back to one of the pillars in Kings of Hearts, right? Which is awareness, the awareness piece,
Yeah.
right? Which is essentially what we're all doing here is, through connecting and through these conversations, we're shining the spotlights and parts of us that, that we're not as aware, and
Yeah.
being able to cultivate that and to remove the obstacles,
Yeah.
ultimately, right? So
For sure.
yeah,
And it goes along, like when you bring that up, it goes along with the idea of the shoulds or supposed to's for me,
yeah,
right? This is the way it's supposed to be done. This is the way it should be done. This is the way it's always been done. And so
hmm,
therefore that's the way you should do it.
yeah,
And questioning that, and asking yourself on that of, well, why is it done that way?
hmm,
Unlearning. And after questioning it, if you realize that, well, that's based on something either that doesn't align with my values, or it's based on something that was true 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 50 years ago, but isn't
hmm,
true today.
yeah,
I need to unlearn what I've learned so I can then learn what's applicable to me today.
exactly, yeah, and also being and also being aware that that could also change, right? We're always,
Yeah.
that's the thing with growth, we're constantly changing, right? And what worked last year, right, is may not work this year, and
Yeah.
being willing to to be adaptable, right? To be
Yeah.
flexible, to be, to be, at least to be open, at least, right? And then
For
making
sure.
changes from there, right? So
For sure. Which is huge. And I think you have to be flexible of
mhm,
especially when new information comes in,
yeah,
right? And being okay with changing your mind,
yeah,
right? I love that. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
yeah. And I really enjoyed another one. You talk a great deal in your podcast episodes on purpose, right? Finding
Mm,
direction, and I think that, like we just talked about, the change, like how things are always changing and being flexible with that. Um, so when it comes to the purpose piece, purpose and passion, even, right? Like
yeah.
how they seem to be related, correlated in some ways, right? Like the passion, having that passion and purpose, but it's, I guess how would I put it? It's, um, I like to think of passion as something that that you bring with you wherever you go, right? As
Okay.
opposed to following it, be like, oh, like, I don't know, like 10 years ago, I was into, I don't know, like martial arts, and I was into, video games, right? So that doesn't mean that that passion in that area, in those areas, it changes, right? Like,
Yeah.
even right now, as I'm talking, I feel passion flowing. Like it's something that you bring along with you, but so I really, that's another point as well too that really resonated with me with the purpose piece. That it's, you can be purposeful, but you don't need that excitement, like it's not necessarily like that. Like it's, you flow
Mhm.
with it, but it's not always going to be there, and that discipline to still strive despite that excitement after the excitement is gone, right? Which is
Yeah,
right. So
for sure. And I
yeah.
think I love that. I love everything you said. And for me, the biggest, well, I guess first of all, passion and purpose and finding them were two of the biggest questions that I still have and I'm still figuring out.
Still a journey.
And
Yeah.
yes, of course. And,
Yeah.
especially for purpose, one that's really helped me recently was in my mind, I'd always told myself purpose is something that you follow for your entire life.
Hmm.
You have a purpose in life and that's it. And so you need to find it. And through some of the conversations with different people, it was, well, you can actually have multiple purposes. And, a term that Nuke likes to use all the time is seasons, right?
Yeah.
And, you can have different purposes for each season in your life
Right.
and they can change and that's okay. And again, taking the weight away from it, and not that I'm looking for the single purpose in my life. I can have multiple and they can last for different periods of time. And, just taking away the seriousness of that and the pressure to find it has been super helpful for myself. And as I still navigate and, I'm searching for, what I would call as my purpose and searching for more passions and whatever it might be, just really having, the self-love to say it's okay. It's okay you haven't found it yet. It's okay that you are still searching, and one day you'll find it, but not putting time constraints on it, not feeling like I'm failing because I don't know what it is right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes back to what you said with the shoulds. I should have this, or or having that, like, this is how it should be, and being rigid to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even those shoulds, it's like subtle judgment. I think it was you or Andy that said that, right? It's the subtle judgment that we place, being resistant to what is, as opposed to allowing and then just accepting,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Exactly.
yeah, I love that. And I know that Nuke and I were in an episode that you hosted where we talked about Black Lives Matters and the whole social injustice. And I just wanted to speak on that, as to just very grateful that you allowed that space to have that conversation, because it's something that is it is uncomfortable, but it's much needed to have.
Yeah.
So
For sure. And I appreciate that a lot. And I think that went back to a lot of the not having rigidity, right? Not being rigid in it, of, being able to ask those questions, to look for new information, right? And on this one, I have to throw all credit back to you two. And you specifically actually really opened my eyes to how big of a problem it was. And, it's unfortunate, but a lot of times it takes, someone in your life that and care about, and seeing something affect them, so that it now applies to you instead of like in the macro. Right. And you sharing your experiences and your feelings with it gave me that push to really start looking into it. And, it was both of you that created the safe environment to make me feel like I could ask those questions.
Yeah.
Right. And so that I was super thankful for, of, caring about both of you so much and wanting to know, what I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that's how it starts, right? By having these conversations and being willing, being vulnerable to have those uncomfortable conversations. And we all have like various roles in how we play, right?
Yeah.
And how we show up. And, there's those that are comfortable being on the front lines, going to the protests, right? And then there's like the storytellers, the visionaries, right? The disruptors, those that take the risk to disrupt, right? Or like the guides or the healers, right? So having this conversation, right, opens a dialogue for other people to also have that as well. Yeah,
for sure. And that was one of the posts that you did, of, kind of explaining that and showing the different roles that people can take. And again, I think that was super helpful and removed a lot of those shoulds of what should this look like? What should it look like for people to care about a cause? Yeah. Right. And taking it and looking at it of, no, there's many different roles that need to be played, and find the role that, you are able to be the most impactful. So
exactly. Yeah. So another, and one thing that that's been on my mind a lot lately, that I'm working on a lot more, is the word embodiment.
Okay.
I think that there's so much information out there, and so many different intellectualization of all these things, right? That there's a disconnect from our bodies, that it's so important that we're able to ground it into our body, breathe it into our body, and just like feel it, right? That visceral feeling as to what that is. And then that's the missing piece there. I think it's that, like, you can throw all these jargons and use these words, but like it's disconnected.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, it makes a ton of sense. And it was something that I had always been really bad for in my life, just in general, of always intellectualizing everything. Right. And it was really the first time was in the men's group, was, talking about, bringing it into your body, of actually feeling it, actually accepting it, just getting it out of, your head.
Exactly.
which is something I still struggle with, but something that I've really been putting a lot of focus on because, like you said, there's a disconnect if you don't.
Exactly. Yeah. So I know that we have a few minutes here.
Cool.
Um, I just actually have like one question to ask you. Actually, that is kind of random, but and I'm going to
For
ask
sure.
it is, what is your what is your what's your favorite word or like your mantra that you
Ooh,
use? Yeah.
that's a good one. The one that comes up for me right now and has been super important in the last few months for myself is self-compassion.
Mm,
And that's been my biggest one. Something I've been working on for focusing on of forgiving myself. It's okay, right? And um, yeah, just self-compassion because I'd always been extremely hard on myself and nothing I did was ever good enough. And
yeah.
so focusing on self-compassion and really, again, internalizing it as well, of not
Hmm.
just thinking it, but actually feeling it,
Yeah.
has been huge.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm curious what yours is though.
My word. I guess it goes back to embodiment, but the word for me, my favorite word is it's a Japanese word called yugen.
Okay.
And what that word means, so it's this deep sense of connectiveness with our environment, with the universe, and it's so intense that it triggers an emotional response that has no words, right? It's just
Mm,
this sense of awe that you're just left with, right? So that is something that I'm always like I don't like chase after it, but it's more so letting go and just being with it, being
yeah.
present.
Yeah.
And in that state, it's very it's very it's a space of just being calm and being centered. You know,
Yeah.
like a hurricane. The center, the eye of the storm is the calmest, the most stable, right? So that's one word that I that I like to use.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah. So where can people find you
Yeah.
to connect with you and your podcast and
For sure.
yeah.
So the podcast is called The Journey with Jared. It's on basically anywhere you listen to podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, some of the smaller ones as well. Or you could connect with me on Instagram here. Just my name, Jared Salakin. And
Mhm.
the icon, if you're looking for the podcast, it's a little yellow icon with a white circle in the middle. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Love it. I'm so excited. Like I like seeing the beginning of your journey unfold and the episodes, coming up. It's every week, right? Or every 2 weeks.
yeah, every week
Awesome.
there's a new episode up.
Awesome.
Ish, every week ish.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Man, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. Um, and I can't wait to see you in person here. All right.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate it.
Love you, hippies. We'll talk later. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.